Hello friend, it's Boras here, and today we have the best controller and camera settings in FC25 in my opinion. We start out here first out with the preset. This must be turned on competitive if you play online game modes. If you just play offline, then you can play custom, but even then you will get the most out of the game if you play here with my settings that I'll show you now on competitive, and it's also much more fun. I'd say having a bit more manual, and this preset is always enabled if you play online competitive matches. It is default and you cannot change that, and that means that the settings like auto shots and assisted headers are always going to be turned off. You cannot change that. So the first one they could change is shot assistance, and you have here precision shooting, manual and assisted. If you play pro level this year, if you want to play pro, you must use precision. To get the highest level and to compete in tournaments this year, you must use precision. It is a bit of a challenge. It is tricky from long distance and tricky from maybe a bit wide angles, but could be better, and you could get more accurate shooting in central zones. But the best one still, and the easiest one, I think definitely is assisted combined with time finishing. I think for sure that's the easiest and the most effective setting overall is time finishing on and shot assistance on assisted. But for pros and aspiring pros this season, you must use then precision. We go here assisted, and then we are passing. Through pass assistance, I think the best one is just semi, but the difference is so small between manual and semi. You can try out both. We go here semi, and then we have for the low through passes, that is L1 triangle. You have here semi and manual. If you have plenty of players with great stats and good long pass playstyles, then the best one is semi or semi. But if you have a quite poor team without that good passing stats, then the best one is actually manual. Otherwise, on semi, passes will be quite inaccurate this year with players that have poor passing attributes. So I think actually at the beginning manual is better with a bit more poor squads, but then for these endgame squads, then semi is better. Pick here this time semi, and then we have ground pass assistance. We have here assisted. I mean semi is quite tricky, and manual it is almost impossible with these servers. That's why we take here assisted. Cross, you have your assisted and semi. You also have manual, but this one I think is way too difficult. Semi is great, but the input is quite sensitive, so you have to aim quite well, otherwise these crosses might end up in the crowd. And I think if you have players with good crossing, especially if you have players with the whip pass playstyle, then assisted is good enough. It is much easier and actually very accurate. So I think assisted is this year good enough and the easiest choice. And then you have low pass assistance, that is for cross passes, that is not crosses, just switching sides and central cross passes. You have here again manual, I think a bit too tough, and then you have semi and assisted. They are almost the same, but there's a one difference that you must think about, and that is that with the goalkeeper sometimes, if you want to put the ball out of the sideline to just end the game, if you have here assisted, then the keeper might just keep the ball on the pitch, and that might be devastating. So with semi you have a bit more freedom, as a power and direction is just partially assisted. We take here this time semi. Pass receiver lock, this one here you have late by default. That's the best if you have low ping. That means you can change direction in the last moment as well, and divert. If the opponent is about to read your pass, you can just change the direction. Otherwise, if you have high ping, you can try out here animation start or power up. That means it locks in earlier the passing direction, but overall the best one is here late to give you more passing freedom and to simply not be as predictable in your passing options. Precision passes sensitivity, this here is a new setting, and that is for the precision passing, the so-called manual passing with R1 square and R1 triangle, and you have a normal and high, but I think definitely normal here gives you enough manual passing if you play on a controller. So here normal I think definitely is good enough. That's fine. And then defending, we have your clearance assistance, you have your classic and directional, and with this one here you can actually choose your clearances. You can pick well, direction, you can aim it, while this one here is just random clearances, both with the power and also with the direction. The best one here definitely is directional. Jockey must be manual, and then you have the big question as last year, tactical defending or advanced defending. The difference here is the X button. If you have tactical, this will be contain, and this here will be then seal outs, manual seal outs, using shoulder challenges and putting that body into the opponent. And this here, this feature is even improved, and I think, well, with the also slower gameplay and the heavier touches, it is even more effective. And I think that this here, seal outs that are manual with X, these powerful lunges, are a must, even for players on a lower level. It is way more worth it than having X being contained. And then pass block assistance on, I mean, having that extra AI doesn't hurt. Auto switching, I think this year actually the best one is only loose balls. Last year we had air balls and loose balls, but sometimes when your opponent is switching sides, the game will switch player for you, even if you don't want that. With this setting, the game will only switch for you on loose balls and crosses, but not when the opponent is switching sides, and I think that gives you more control of your defense. That's why I think the best one here is only on loose balls. And then we have auto switching move assistance. Says here that this will keep the player who you have auto switched to moving in their current direction for a period of time. And this one, I mean, used by most pro players is none, as it gives you the highest defensive structure, and players will to the greatest extent stay in their positions, while these here, low and high, can occasionally make your team to move out of position and lose its shape. That's why the best one is known for the highest defensive structure. RTIC Switching, we have here classic, rotation and adaptive. The best one is still classic for sure, the easiest and most clean one. And then we have RTIC Switching reference, and this will be determining your center point of reference of your RTIC Switching. Default is player. You can also pick as well ball, that is your own preference, but I think the one that is easiest and makes most sense is player relative. Right stick is switching sensitivity for default is fine. If you have issues though with your switching, then it is easier to go here lower, let's say than 0, as this one here will then be more likely to select a player in a closer proximity, even if you don't aim directly at them. But I think the best one still is the default here on 4. You can tweak this as you want. We go here though 4. And then next player switching, we have here closest to ball, we have goal side, and then you have classic, which is default setting here. And I think that is the best one, as this is gonna here be, well, the L1 switching will be determined by various factors. So sometimes switching to the player that is closest, and sometimes switching to the player that is on the goal side of the ball. It is simply a bit mixed, and I think this is the best choice, trusting this time EA. And then we have the infamous reaction time modifier, and this is a new setting, and this, well, people claim that this will help your menus to be more smooth. It will reduce input lag. Overall, that is not correct. This here just impacts your L1 switching, but I tried this out on 0 and on 10. It does nothing, there's no difference. So you might here just put this on off anyways, to make sure off, and then your game might get wings and fly. Player lock must use feature, that one is on definitely, and the contextual dribbling is off by default. And this one here just impacts the goalkeeper in some separate game modes that is not like Ultimate Team, not online. This one doesn't matter, you can just put this on anything, but to make sure just put this here on assisted. And then you have analog sprint, a quite big thing here. If you have this on off, you will sprint fully, even if you just here press down the sprint button slightly. While if you have this on, you can have here a bit of half sprinting. And looking at pro players, it is quite divided off and on. But I think off is easier, as sometimes you might, well, think that you're sprinting fully, but you haven't pressed down the sprint button fully, and that means you won't have max pace. So this here is easier and just a safer choice in defense. And then when it comes to these things here, vibration and stuff like this, just go off. That is not needed. So camera settings, just don't play default here. They have always some new cameras, EA, that are awful. So yeah, these ones here, don't play. The best ones definitely is the telebroadcast and also co-op. If you want this overview with this bird perspective or helicopter perspective, as you might like it. This one is the best for players that prefer possession, and this one is the best for players overall. It gives you both this close feeling for the micro movements, for the timing, but also gives you as well a great overview. That's why I think the best one is still, after so many years, telebroadcast. That is just the perfect FC/FIFA angle. And then for this one, put your custom, go custom, and then put height on 10, I think, is the best. The sweet spot is maybe then between 7 and 15. If you put it 20, I feel like you don't see that much of the flanks. So you see now the comparison of 20 here, and this is 10. And you see that with 10, you will see more of the width. Zoom just 0 to see as much as possible. 0, 0. And then partial zoom, I think, is easier on off. You get better aim, I think, without changing up this angle and changing up this camera. And also, if you have this on, you might get tricked by your opponent plenty of times. If he does the power shot cancel, he might mess up your defense. That's why off, I think, is easier. And then you have visuals, and this is here just your preferences. Won't have an impact on the gameplay, but this here I think is nice to have. HUD, player name, and indicator, player name, to see who has the ball, because sometimes you don't see who is who. They have the same haircut, the same boots, and you cannot see who is on the ball, and this gives you great info. Player name, and then go here, the size large. And for all these things here, that is just preferences. I just prefer to have all these things off. Someone though likes to have your playstyles on to see who has the playstyle plus and when this is being activated. But again, I just find all these things distracting, and you have this info since before. I don't need to see that on the pitch. And next player though, this one could be nice to have for some players to see who is the next one. If you switch L1 or if you press L1, it will then select this player here. But I think it could be though confusing having two cursors, and it might be, especially if you're stressed, you don't know who you're actually controlling and who is the next player switch indicator. That's why I think off is easier here. And then visuals for precision passing and shooting could be also nice to have, but this one though you cannot use if you play online competitive modes. You cannot see your precision shot cursor. That is not possible, but is not possible in friendlies and non-competitive game modes. And for passing as well, this is for the R1 passing, R1 square, and R1 triangle. Could be nice to see where you aim, but if you master this, then off gives you definitely a more clean interface and more clean visuals. That's why I prefer now, after 1 year of mastering this feature, I prefer having this on off. Radar 2D, and then this here could be nice to have depending on your shirt colors. Alright, so if you have a kit that is white, pick white. If you have, let's say, black, etc, etc, then you can pick here this user color by your shirt kit. So we go here, I have red, and then we go here opponent. It is also good to pick so you don't get these clashes. I go here red, and opponent gets, then here we take black. More of these visuals, we just go here off, but I mean, this is up to your own preference. Default. This one could be nice having off. It is annoying. Scrolling lineups could mess up your radar. I also like to see my ping as well, and my input overlay to see my controller on the screen, my inputs, so I can show when I press something but the game doesn't register. For example, happens quite often. And then hypermotion inside, this one off, annoying as well. And I just prefer as much as possible to be off, so I have as clean visuals as possible, and thus less distractions on my screen and more focus on important areas and scoring goals. And new for this year as well, huge one, is measurement system. Default is Imperial, but you have the best one, which is most accurate, is metric, to see exactly the height in centimeters. And I think this one, of course your own preference, but I think the metric one has more accuracy. That is it for today though. Hope you found this video helpful, and see you guys again tonight for the RTG. Thanks so much for watching. As always, you know, until next time, take care.